Video is starting. Oh, we're live. Oh, let's see. Okay, well, I think we are. It says we are.
You can only hope.
Yeah. Okay, if anybody is there, or when you get there, first of all, can you let us know if you can hear us and how the sound is? Because we're trying something new today. So instead of using my phone, we're using. I should wait till people come on because they're going to come on when we're talking, and I have to say this again.
You gotta wait for what number?
Yeah, I get.
You got somebody there.
Oh, here's Randy. Hey, Randy, can you hear us? Okay. How's the sound? Because I'm running it off my computer instead of my phone. Let us know. Oh, it doesn't give us how many people are watching in this mode. Can hear you and can hear you clear. Awesome. Yay! So we'll use this from now on because my phone is shit. Okay, we're just going to give it a few seconds. And when you're there, say hello because now it doesn't tell us, in this mode, it doesn't tell us who's watching. Oh, it says we have 5 viewers. See it down there in the insights?
Oh, is that where that is?
Yeah. Can you see
Okay,
it?
yeah.
Yeah. Okay, cool. All right. We want to talk about first.
What I want to talk about first? I don't know about anything, but my wife tells me I have to mention some things.
Okay,
No,
go ahead.
I'm joking. We're coming up close, getting close to the end of October, and then we've got
Hey, Shannon.
but we've got a Black Friday sale coming up in November.
November 25th.
25th, 1 month from Christmas.
Oh,
So,
I never thought of that. Yeah, that's
Yeah, so it'll be one of those Christmas presents to me, from me, thanks me.
Or you can get your hubby to buy it for you.
Or you could get your hubby to buy it for you. The big thing about the Black Friday sale, like we touched on earlier in previous posts and shows, is that it starts at 8 a.m. I think it's 8 to 5 or something like that.
Yeah, I haven't mentioned Lindsay yet when to put it on the website. But
Yeah.
the goal will be like 8 to 5-ish.
The goal is it's going to be around on from between 8 and 5, 8 hours. It's a one-day only sale, one-time only sale, and basically the lowest price of the year and the lowest price that the 6-week program will be ever.
Probably ever, yeah.
Some of the rules are that it has to be bought that day. There's going to be no wait list for it. You either buy or you don't. And it's paid in full. So to get the price and to secure your spot, we haven't decided how many Black Friday spots are going to be there. What did you have last year for spots? How many spots did you have in Black Friday?
I don't remember. I'd have to go back and look.
So we've got some time, and we'll keep you posted on how many spots they're going to be. But if it's anything like last year, they ain't going to be there for very long, regardless of how many you put it.
So that's true.
And we have had a lot of success with the wait list this year. So yeah, if the Black Friday sale turns out to anything like the wait lists that we've been having,
It'll probably
they
sell out.
expire quick. Yeah.
Right. Okay.
So we won't dwell on that anymore. But just keep your eyes and ears open for that, and we'll start with our topic for today, which is.
So we decided to, while we were making the bed this morning, we decided to talk about emotional eating, stress eating, all of the emotions that come with sometimes food for people. And we decided to talk about it mostly because we are getting closer to the holidays. And sometimes around this time of year, a lot of people tend to be extremely stressed, even like overwhelmed with work and stuff like that, or overwhelmed with preparing for Christmas, preparing for the holidays and stuff like that can sometimes cause extra emotions and extra stress. So we're going to touch on emotional eating. I'm going to go through the difference between emotional hunger and physical hunger. And then I'm going to talk about some tools and tips and tricks. And we'll kind of run through, I have a bunch of notes. So if you notice me looking down at my paper, that's why, because I want to make sure I don't miss anything. I guess the first thing that I'll say is emotional eating is extremely common. I've had numerous clients who deal with this issue I've helped a ton of people through. I didn't actually, Shada, but now that you mention it, I've had a ton of people that I've helped work through these issues. It takes a long time to overcome emotional eating because most of the time, emotional eating issues stem all the way back to childhood. So think about how long you've been dealing with emotional eating and think about trying to, you won't get over that or get through that or overcome that in just a matter of a couple of weeks or a few months. It does take significant time. The goal with trying to overcome emotional eating is not to not allow you to use, not allow you to, like, not to look at food as a bad choice, but instead to allow you to take your power back when it comes to around food. Like, make the choice your own. Because what happens in emotional eating is that we're no longer making the choice ourselves. Food is making the choice for us.
Yeah, because I know, like, when I get melancholy, depressed, sad, whatever, because the weather sucks. Can't go outside for a walk. Whatever, just different things. My first thing to do is just to grab a big old bag of chips, go upstairs, sit on the couch, and watch TV. It's like, right? And then after, I try. Well, I'm successful now. I don't eat an entire bag anymore.
So the first thing to remember is that even though it feels like you are powerless around food, it's actually not the case. You're powerless over processing the emotions that you're feeling. That's where the concept of emotional eating came from. So there's a process of basically what you're trying to do when you eat is stuff down your emotions so you don't have to deal with them. So it's not that you're powerless around food and you can't take that power and control back. You do have the power there. It's just going to take practice to take it back. But in the same breath, it's more so that you're trying to actually stuff down your emotions so you're powerless actually around dealing with the emotion more so than the actual food. So let's talk about what the difference is between emotional hunger and physical hunger.
Why?
I don't know. So emotional hunger basically happens when you're not hungry or you shouldn't be hungry, first of all. It also happens, and generally it's not, you're not just willing to eat any food. It's more like you're craving something, usually fatty food or sugary, higher carbohydrate type food. That comfort style food that we generally tend to want when we're feeling some sort of emotion. And the emotion doesn't always have to be what we call, like, we look at emotional eating often as a bad thing or around bad emotions like stress, boredom, loneliness, those things. But truth be known, there's also emotional, like, we eat because we're happy too a lot. We eat because we're celebrating, right? So those are emotions too. So the other thing about emotional eating is that there's not really any, what do we want to say, like, timeline where you can just eat at any moment. It doesn't matter what time of day it is. It doesn't matter anything. All it matters is how you're feeling and trying to stuff down these feelings with food, basically.
Bowl of many eggs at 10 o'clock in the morning.
Exactly. And then physical hunger is actually, you will eat an apple. You can actually think and go, okay, well, I am actually hungry. I do feel hunger. I feel hunger pangs. And I would be satisfied with an apple.
Right.
I might even be satisfied with broccoli because I'm actually truly hungry.
I was just going to suggest. Can I make a suggestion?
No.
So when you're an emotional eater, only have things in your house that you don't like to eat.
Well,
broccoli.
And
I like broccoli.
The other thing about physical hunger is that it usually happens about 2.5 to 3 hours after we've had our last meal. So you'll start to feel like, you won't be starving by 2.5 to 3 hours post last meal, not likely, but you'll actually start to feel those pangs, that awareness that, hunger is starting to come on. And the other thing to note is that with emotional hunger, food actually doesn't satisfy or resolve anything. In physical hunger, food actually satisfies. It actually, takes care of the issue at hand because you're actually hungry. I already mentioned that you have the power. So you do hold the power. It just takes a long time to practice taking it back and actually making those choices your own around food. So with that said, some of the tools that I have used and do use with clients, as well as I want to point out here, though, that you'll notice as you go through your emotional eating journey, that some of the tools will work sometimes, and then that same tool might not work the next time. So I'll give you a bunch of tools. You'll have all these tools in your basket, but don't forget that just because you use one this week, that same one might not work next week. So then you might have to go through some of the other tools to find the one that's actually going to work. Some of the things that I actually do recommend as well is really sitting back. If you have what usually happens in emotional eating is that it's mindless. But if you start to develop more self-awareness, which actually comes through your process of trying to take your power back with food, once you develop self-awareness, you start to develop a little bit more mindfulness as well. If you have enough mindfulness, actually noticing the emotions that trigger you to want to eat. So for some people it's stress, for some people it's overwhelm, for some people it's loneliness, for some people it's simply boredom, for some people it's every emotion under the sun. Could be anxiety as well, is another good one.
Yeah.
What else you got?
I don't know, boredom is mine.
Yeah, boredom is most people's. Lonely is another extremely common one, and stress and overwhelm are the really common ones. If you can notice the emotions that trigger it, then you can ask yourself things like, what is happening to make me feel this way? How do I feel? What is the emotion that's connecting and making me feel this way? Once you know the emotion, then you can you can almost prepare yourself. You know, you're overwhelmed at work, say for instance, and you know overwhelm causes emotional eating for you, then you can prepare yourself about what you're going to do when you get home to help you navigate the emotions that you've been triggered by throughout the day, as an example. Another really good practice, almost ahead of time, and having this list down. So if you want to write down some of the tools I'm going to give you today, that'd be really good, really good start. Is like brainstorming tips, tricks, and ideas for you that are realistic for you that you could potentially implement. That makes sense?
Yeah.
Like tips and tricks and tools. So some of the ones that I've used with clients, over the years are, well, the first one would be giving yourself 15 to 20 minutes where you actually get out and avoid the kitchen altogether. Or if you know that just leaving the kitchen but still being somewhere else in the house isn't going to work, leaving the house altogether. Go for a drive, go for a walk, go for a run, whatever it is you do, use that. That would be the first one, because you want to, when you give yourself that 15 to 20 minutes, you actually have time to process what's going on. And then if you do go back to the kitchen, at least you've given yourself enough time to actually make the choices now your own.
Right, because you're actually stopping and taking the time to think about what's going on, as opposed to having it just be like a natural reaction. Well,
exactly.
I'm bored, so I'm just going to go grab a bag of chips and watch YouTube.
Yes, or not even a natural reaction, but I'm really overwhelmed and I just need food because I need this comfort and I need this to help me navigate this thing in these situations, right? I know you're talking about your own personal stuff.
Yeah, they don't know much else about it.
No, but that's right. But that's exactly it. Like if you give yourself 15 to 20 minutes to do whatever, like you and I've done that too. Maybe not in the moment, but you might have been going to grab the chips and I'm going like, well, what? Let's go for a walk. And then when you come back, you don't actually want the chips.
No, I don't after that. No.
Yeah, so that would be the first one I would suggest. The second one would be the one Kevin mentioned as well, and I actually don't have this one written on the list. That's protecting your environment. If you can keep a lot of the comforting foods for you out of your home altogether, by the time even if you did decide to get in the car and go to the store to buy it, by the time you get to the store, you've already given yourself that 15 to 20 minutes.
Right.
And you may be able to navigate around it and make them, then again, the choice your own, as opposed to dictated by your emotions.
Right, because we often say that there's no such thing as a good food or a bad food, but in some cases, you really don't have much of a choice but to not have that kind of stuff in the house.
That's right. I mean, for everybody, there are trigger foods. Well, not everybody, but a lot of people have trigger foods. Right. So keeping your trigger foods out of your house, while you can help yourself understand to be able to make the choice when they're around, is sometimes what needs to happen. Yeah. Keeping things out for a while until you can develop the awareness, the mindfulness, and the ability to actually say yes or no to them and make that choice your own is also a really good one. The third one I would say that I often recommend is finding some sort of distraction that's relatable to you. So some of the ones that I've given clients and that clients and I have worked through would be, again, number one would be like using some sort of exercise activity, which would be going for a walk or something like that. But there's also like things like knitting, like cross stitch, crossword puzzles, Sudoku, Scrabble, coloring, adult coloring books, yoga, stretching.
I think meditation, maybe.
Meditation is a good one. Going to have a bath, like anything that really keeps your hands occupied and busy are good ones. Right. But again, they have to be relatable to you. Because for me, I enjoy doing crossword puzzles, but you might not enjoy something like that. You might get nothing out of it. Right. But something that kind of distracts you from food, keeps your hands busy, and also keeps your mind a little bit active.
Yeah, and I was thinking more of meditation because if you're stressed or if you're full of anxiety or something like that, putting yourself in more of a calm space, it's more of a soothing atmosphere, like you say, in the bathtub. Surround yourself with some candles, some nice music, a good book, and just relax in the tub. Things like that. Some things that just are, maybe a little more within your realm.
Yeah, and another really good one that one of my clients actually messaged me last week and said she finally used and it works really well for her, is just doing a big brain dump in a journal. So for me personally, this one never works for me because I'm super OCD, so everything has to be written really nicely in my journal. But if you're not somebody who, if you can just do a big brain dump on a page, that would be super helpful because then you're just writing everything that you're thinking in your head. Yeah. She had messaged me about this last week. We chatted about it, and she went and she did a whole brain dump before she messaged me. She was messaging me with, I actually did this, and it really helped. She put this whole brain dump down. She went and did a little bit of yoga, a yoga video on YouTube or whatever, and then she came back and she had, not gone to the kitchen and used her emotions or used food as a coping mechanism, which was really good for her. So that's another one that really works for some people. Another really, really good concept, and these are things that I learned from Tracy Colson, who is the owner of Life Aligned Wellness here in town. I use Tracy sometimes to come in and do presentations for my longer term clients. And she did a presentation for us last year on emotional eating. And she gave us some grounding techniques. So some things like honing in on your five senses. So would be like, as you're feeling the emotions, if you can be mindful enough about it, to go, name, say 5 things you see, 4 things you hear, 3 things you go through your 5 senses. 5, 4, 3, 2, 1. And then another really good one she mentioned was, I think it's called the breathing workbox. So picture a box. You take 4 breaths in on one corner. Breathe it out for 4 to get to the other corner. Yeah. Take it in, out at the other corner, in and out, all the way to the box. And then you can do the whole box of breathing. That will help you tune into your body. And those are really great grounding techniques. I've actually used the 5 senses one when I've been really, really anxious. Like when I'm struggling with anxiety, the 5 senses one really helps. The box corner to corner I've never used, but I've heard really good things about breathing techniques as well. So all of these things actually do help kind of overcome some of the emotional eating stuff as well. Yeah. And lastly, one of the ones that seems to really work well, if you can be mindful enough to keep doing it, is keeping your mouth fresh. So if you can brush your teeth, use mouthwash or chew gum, you are less likely to want to gravitate to food. Again, these are tools that don't work every single time. Some people would just spit the gum out and go for the food regardless. But if your mouth is fresh, you're less likely to think about food. I was talking to another client a couple weeks ago, and she was saying actually that was a tool given to her when she quit smoking as well, and it really, really works. So she's going to take that one away and start implementing that one for her emotional eating stuff as well. So I do have clients who use a variety of these. Some of them they found work really, really well every time. Some of them they found only work on occasion. But when you have a bunch of tools in your toolbox, at least then you can pull from those tools and try and help you navigate it enough, even if it helps you navigate that 15 to 20 minutes, because that's about how long it takes to kind of at least know then that you kind of give yourself the ability to make the choice your own.
Right, because brushing teeth. So I know once that like you, first thing you do in the morning is before coffee is you brush your teeth and rinse. I'm like, I can't do that. It just
Because then you
ruins
have
the
that
of
taste,
coffee.
right? Nothing tastes as good when your mouth, like coffee doesn't taste as good when your mouth is.
No, it ruins it for me. It ruins the taste.
Yeah, so it's true that when we have a fresh mouth, we are less likely to gravitate to food. It's very true. Some other good, I will say, mindful concepts. So these will only work if you're mindful and if you're able to be in the moment. Is to ask yourself, how do you want to feel when you go to bed tonight? Ask yourself, what is this food going to help me with long term? Ask yourself again, as I started this with, what is the emotion I'm feeling? And what is happening to me to make me feel this way? Like what has happened today or what has happened in this moment that makes me feel this way? When you can answer all those questions, then automatically you're bringing more mindfulness back to what's going on with you, where you are in the moment. What happens with emotional eating is that it actually only makes us feel good in the moment we're eating. The minute we stop eating or the minute we have gone too far with the eating, we feel self-judgment, we feel shame, we feel guilt, we feel bloated and gross.
It's the same thing as impulse shopping.
Yeah, I mean, this relates to so many things, but we're talking about emotional eating simply because we deal with food most often,
right?
And that's what we help clients overcome. But emotional eating generally ends in us berating and beating ourselves up because, again, we did this thing that we didn't want to do, and it made us feel comforted in maybe a 5-minute period, and then we feel like poop after. And then we start going through that whole cycle again, you know? The emotion starts, we turn to food, we eat the food, we feel like crap about ourselves, which makes us in turn feel worse, and then eventually you're back to the emotion that you started with, because it's probably even worse now because now you feel worse.
Well, then now you're eating the whole cake instead of just the piece you took out earlier.
Right? So I guess to reiterate, some of the, I guess the main thing would be you want to start developing more self-awareness with yourself. So this is one of the reasons why Fit Girls Rock coaching deals with building mindset, building self-awareness. The more self-awareness you have, the more you are able to navigate these situations, I'll say, better. It'll never be perfect, probably, and it'll always be tough, and it takes a ton of practice and a ton of time. So knowing those things going in also helps, because then it's almost like you don't need to have this expectation that, you know, you're going to be able to overcome this immediately. Yeah. For some people, it takes a really long time. For some people, it might only take a few months, but for others, it could literally take years, and that's okay. Because again, remember that oftentimes these things have stemmed over a long period of time.
Right, and one of the things that we talked about on a walk the other day too, with, you know, things like this, things that cause emotional eating, things that cause distress and things like that. You have a choice on how you deal with that, right? You know, whereas instead of just defaulting to the go-to, which is eating, right? It's like you say, you take your power back, you know, stop, process what you're going through, things like that. You can't always look at yourself as the victim. You know, poor me. This is what happened to me today. My life is crap. This is crap. All, you know, and all that kind of stuff. And I know that you and I talked about, like, when I had my breakthrough this year when I was learning how to fly an airplane. You know, you'd ask me how my lesson was, and I said, well, it was crap, right? And this was crap, and that was crap, and blah blah blah. And that was where my mindset was around it. So basically, we started taking the approach as to what can we do to make it better, as opposed to, well, you know, I'm not going to go fly today because yesterday was crap.
Well, I also think that, and it's very true, I've heard people say something like, maybe it's not exact words, but I've heard people say something along these lines. Well, I'm just an emotional eater, and this is how I deal with things. And there's the way you talk to yourself about the things that you do and how you do them and how you approach them, especially when you're trying to overcome something like this, plays a huge role. So saying you're an emotional eater and this is just how you do, basically how you are, is not helping you any.
No.
Because if you want to overcome something like this, building the self-awareness is key. But then in addition to the self-awareness, you have to start talking to yourself in a way where this is no longer who you are or who you want to be. Now you want to be this and you want to develop this. So you can't keep saying and this is what you're getting at.
Yeah.
You can't keep saying and being in this is just who I am, because now you're trying to change and this is no longer going to be who you are at some point.
Right.
So it might be who you are in this moment, but it's not who you have to be. You have control to make this different. And again, that's not either of us being mean. That's just simply both of us seeing that it is possible to overcome these things. And the more you tell yourself you can't, then the more you're allowing it to happen to yourself.
Right.
And then, whereas if you take your power and you say, no, I can do this, I can change this, understanding that there will be mistakes and struggles and fumbles along the way, that's when you get over the mountain or get to the top of the mountain or whatever.
Right. Because it basically turns out, like what we were also talking about earlier in the week, was do you really want it? Or are you just telling yourself that you want it?
Yeah, I mean, there's a difference between wanting. I think that in this case, because there's a ton of emotions that go into this, and there's a ton of background that go into this, we have to be very, very careful about how we talk to ourselves about the type of person we are or who we are. If we can talk to ourselves in a way whereby we understand that this is something that we do, but that we want to overcome it, and now we're no longer this person. We want to be this. We want to be this person, or we are this person, but we want to be this person, and then we start to take the action to be more of this and deal with things in this way, as opposed to just saying this is just who I am, and oh well, I can't do anything about it kind of thing. Then you're giving your power completely away.
Right.
Whereas if you look at it in a way whereby this is who I am, this is what I've always done, but I'm going to work really hard to change this now. Going to implement these tools, understanding that these tools may not work for me every single time, but I'm still going to put in the effort to, make a list for myself, brainstorm the things that are realistic to me that could be potential helpers to help me navigate the emotions.
Right.
Noticing the emotion, looking for my triggers, maybe even writing down my triggers throughout and then once you have those alternate behaviors written down, then you can use that set of tools every single time you're experiencing emotional eating. And maybe you might even at some point in time develop some of your own tools and notice things that work for you better or that really work for you, and then you can keep adding to your list. And now you have a whole set of tools you can use when you're experiencing emotional eating, when you've had a bad day, when you're overwhelmed, when you're stressed, when your kids are making you stressed or overwhelmed, or whatever the case may be.
Right, because once you flip over to the other side where you've moved past this, then it doesn't mean you can't eat those kinds of foods anymore. It's just now that those foods have become a treat.
It's not
or
even
a
so much.
reward or an enjoyment as opposed to being a crutch.
It's not even so much that you can't, when you're having these emotions, that you can't actually choose to have the food. It's more about giving you the opportunity to actually make the choice.
Right.
So if you're having an emotional day and you're overwhelmed and you come home and you don't think about anything, but you go into the kitchen and you just eat, and then all of a sudden you feel like shit because that cycle that I already talked about. If you come home from work and you give yourself the time and you go through the tools enough to be mindful enough then to make your own decision, and you decide you're having a piece of chocolate cake, you've made the decision now. The decision is yours. Now you've taken your power back. You also then have the opportunity to choose not to have the cake, to go for a walk, to come home, and you're fine now. You don't need any of it.
Right.
Either way, the choice isn't bad then, because the choice isn't good or bad. The choice isn't mindless anymore. The choice is, I took the time, I decided, now I've taken my power back because the decision is entirely mine. Right. The decision isn't any longer about food or about my emotions. The decision was my own. I took my power back, and because I took my power back, I realized that I can. And every single time you take your power back, as I always say, you gain confidence, yada, yada, yada. then you practice, and the more practice you have, the better you get at being more mindful and making that decision your own. It's like I think you just brought it up. It's over time. Then the more times you make the choice, say to not to have the thing, and you do something else, the distraction or whatever you decided, then the more often you're going, like there will come a point where you can probably have the, I don't know, Oreo cookies in your house and not even be bothered by the fact that they're in your house.
Right.
It just takes time for those things to
Right.
happen.
So when you have it because you enjoyed it.
Yeah.
Right. You have, and you'll likely only have a couple just for the taste because you've reminded that this is what you like, this is the taste, and blah blah blah. Whereas when you eat it, I know from my own experience, when you eat it as an emotion, it's not even the enjoyment of eating that food. It's just the fact that, like you said, craving sugars or craving starches or craving fat, something like that. That's where that goes, right?
Yeah.
So, and that's what I was saying earlier, when it becomes more of a treat or a reward because you've made the decision.
Yeah, so once you make the decision and the decision is yours, well, again, as Kevin and I always say, there's no good or bad food. So once you make the decision and the decision is yours, the idea behind these practices is to actually give you the opportunity to take your power back. Because oftentimes, or I shouldn't even say oftentimes, what happens is that you're not having the power to do it because you're not making the decision on your own. That the decision is a very mindless one for comfort, to stuff down your emotions. So because of that, there's no thought process around it. You just go do it. And sometimes you don't even do it. You don't even realize you've done it or until you're midway through or until you're already done. The problem with it is mostly that how shitty you feel after. How much you berate yourself, how much you judge yourself, how guilty you feel, how much shame you feel, all of those things that are not great emotions to feel only put you back to where you basically started at the beginning.
You basically compound the problem.
You basically you've done the cycle, but you've made yourself feel worse. So when you understand these things or start implementing these things so that you are able to take your power back, that's ultimately the goal, is just so that you can make the choice and be happy with the choice. Because when you aren't able to make the choice, that's actually when you feel the worst, because you know that the choice wasn't your own. You didn't really want to do this, but this is your pattern, this is what you do, this is how you deal with your emotions. Whereas when you start to navigate the emotions to show up in a different way, you actually learn how to take the power back. Then you make the choice. Chocolate cake or no chocolate cake. Oreos or no Oreos. But you made the decision your own. So even if you eat the Oreos or you eat the chocolate cake, now you're eating it mindfully. You're probably just going to have a portion. And you're going to be okay with that decision because you made it your own. And you're going to feel way better about yourself after.
Right.
Make sense?
Yep.
So I think that covers everything I had on my list.
Yeah.
I don't think anybody had a question, but Shayna has a comment here. I want to just see what she said. It's more stress eating, and I used to actually lose my appetite with stress. I usually lose my appetite with stress when I'm highly stressed. So there's a difference between stress emotional eating where you're not in fight or flight mode. Like when you're extremely stressed and your body's under extreme stress, that's when we kind of go fight or flight. So when I'm in that kind of capacity of stress where it's like deep stress, I lose my appetite almost all the time. When it's the other kind of stress where maybe it's just overwhelm or boredom or something like that, your body's not necessarily in fight or flight. It's just, this is how I'm feeling and I want to comfort myself by dealing with it that way. Now, since I had kids, I want all the food when I'm stressed. But tracking has helped me immensely. Tracking helps. The only thing, it helps some people. It's one of those tools that helps some people with emotional eating. Because if you are willing to track the things that you eat, or you are able to be mindful enough to look at your tracker before you choose to eat something, whether you're stressed around or whatever emotion, it can help some people. But a lot of times it doesn't help because a lot of people will avoid tracking what they've eaten altogether, or they will be so consumed by their emotion that they won't bother to look at a tracker enough to then make the choice.
Basically, if somebody's tracking, it's because they're disciplined.
Yeah, so in your case, Shada, that works for you. And it's a great tool. I personally think that tracking is awesome for all. Tracking is really, really great for bringing the awareness back to what you consume, how much you consume, the portions of things you consume, where you're getting the majority of your food from, your calories from, that kind of thing. It's super. If it helps you navigate your stress or emotional eating, I think it's wonderful. Again, it's like a tool in any toolbox, as I mentioned already. It works for some. Some of these tools will work for some of them won't work. For some of them won't work at all, and sometimes one will work and another one won't next week or whatever. I don't think there's anything else. No, that's it. Anything else you want to say?
No, I don't think so. No, it's a very good topic because the worst thing about emotional eating for most people is that they don't feel like there's anything you can do about it, and it's just an automatic go-to, right?
Yeah, it's like this, right? It's that it's you feel powerless over food, but technically speaking, it's not that the food takes away your power. It's the emotion that you're feeling that you're powerless over. And because it's probably stemmed from way back when, it's a pattern and story you've created for yourself where you use food every single time you feel this emotion. And you don't really think twice about it because it's what you've always done. Yeah. That's where the hard part comes in. It's trying to navigate and change these patterns, cut them off, and change them for yourself. And the more you can understand and the more you can implement these tools, brainstorm these ideas for yourself, create distractions, it does become easier over time, but it's still a hard thing to overcome.
Yeah, the first thing is to develop self-awareness, and the second thing is to reflect on that, and then just understand where it all stems from.
Understanding where it stems from is a big one, because once you can understand where these things come from, it's sometimes easier just to go, oh, now I get it, kind of thing, And then it becomes almost easier once you understand where something could be coming from to navigate it better, I think.
If you can understand what's causing the problem, you can figure out how to fix it.
Yeah, exactly.
Right? And I think the worst thing is, though, I think emotions are one of the hardest things to understand.
Yeah, that's very true. That's a good point. Yeah. All right, ladies. Well, that is it for us for today. I hope that helps. Oh, hey, yeah, Tracy. Macros is actually macro tracking is very complicated, and it's actually not necessary to track all of your macros. If you were in a position where you wanted to, say, compete in a fitness competition or something, where you're walking on stage in a bikini, yada yada, then you might want to dig really deep into macros. But outside of that, technically speaking, calories are the main source of progress, one way or the other, whether it's fat loss or muscle gain or whatever it is. Calories are the main source, and then second thing for tracking would be protein. So if you're tracking those two, actually, to be honest, at first I only have my clients track calories. So don't overcomplicate something that doesn't need to be extremely complicated. Just take it step by step, and then you just start to improve your habits as you go with tracking. That's how I teach it. So we start by tracking calories, and then we work on the habits and behaviors to improve your nutrition over time. And then eventually I would add a protein target in there for some of my clients. But that's it. So don't make it too complicated. That would be my advice there. Anyway, it's been nice chatting with you all, and we will see you again next week. Same time, same place. Bye.